Africa doesn't care how much your ticket costs. August 31st, 2013. Tanzania. The bush outside Tarangire National Park, a sprawling reserve of acacia and baobab in the northern Rift Valley, where elephant herds move through the dry season in numbers that make the ground tremble when they run. Dr. Thomas McAfee was 58 years old. He had spent 11 years as a dean at the University of California, San Diego, building careers for other doctors, shaping one of the most respected medical schools in the country. He had just resigned to take a new position, chief executive of Keck Medicine of USC, one of the most prestigious healthcare leadership roles on the West Coast. That job was set to begin in 3 days. He was not the kind of man who sat still between chapters of his life. He was the kind of man who, with 3 days left before the biggest professional moment of his career, flew to Tanzania and went on a walking safari instead of staying home to prepare. By every account from people who knew him, that tells you everything about who he was. He was with 2 companions. No guide has been confirmed on the official record. The circumstances of exactly who was leading the walk remain partially unclear from the official accounts, though visitors to the area are supposed to be accompanied by armed rangers. What is confirmed is this: the 3 of them were on foot, viewing game in the bush, when they walked into a herd of approximately 50 elephants. I want you to sit with that number for a second. 50 elephants, the largest land animals on Earth. An adult African elephant stands nearly 4 meters at the shoulder and weighs up to 6,000 kilograms. They do not move quietly despite that size. In open ground, a herd that size is visible for hundreds of meters. In dense acacia bush, where sight lines collapse to 10 or 15 meters between trees, 50 elephants can be invisible until you are already inside them. That is the geography of what happened here. Not recklessness, geography. The group ran. That is the instinct, and it is also exactly the wrong instinct with elephants. Running triggers pursuit because a fleeing animal is a prey animal, and something that size moving away activates the chase response before any conscious decision gets made. The 2 companions cleared the herd. McAfee fell. The elephant that reached him did not hesitate. At 55 kilometers per hour, there is no hesitation. There is only momentum in the animal's body weight, which at a moderate 6,000 kilograms is approximately the same as stacking 5 family sedans on top of a single point. One of his companions found him. He was evacuated to Tarangire Health Center, where he was pronounced dead. The U.S. State Department confirmed his death within hours and made contact with his family. There was no footage. The 3 of them were on foot in the bush, not on a vehicle with a mounted camera, not carrying equipment that anyone films with when they are running for their lives. The sequence of events was pieced together from the accounts of his 2 surviving companions and the police report filed by the Manyara Regional Police Commander, who confirmed McAfee had fallen while the others escaped. Here is the detail that never leaves the story. The job he had just accepted, the one that started in 3 days, was not a routine promotion. It was the capstone of a career, the role that colleagues said would define his final chapter in medicine. The university that was expecting him on September 3rd sent condolences to his family instead of a welcome. His death certificate was issued in Tanzania. His body remained in the country for days while authorities processed the paperwork. The last thing anyone at UC San Diego who worked alongside him for 11 years received from that chapter of their lives was an email from a vice chancellor that began with the word tragedy. He never unpacked for that job. He never sat down at that desk. He spent the last 3 days he had exactly the way he wanted to spend them: in the bush, on foot, watching elephants in Tanzania at dawn. And the bush spent those 3 days being exactly what it has always been: indifferent to the career, the job title, the flight home, all of it. The next man in this video had been in Africa dozens of times. He knew the rules. He followed them. The lion still turned around. August 24th, 2015. Hwange National Park, Zimbabwe. A landscape of teak forest and open pan in the northwest of the country. The former home of a lion named Cecil, who had been killed by an American bow hunter less than 4 weeks earlier, and whose death had triggered a global storm that was still running when Quinn Swales walked into the park that morning. Quinn Swales was 40 years old. He was a fully qualified professional guide employed by Camp Hwange, a safari company that specialized in walking safaris, the most demanding form of safari work, the kind where you are on foot in the bush with clients who have no training and a guide who carries the full weight of keeping them alive. He had worked in Hwange countless times. He knew the landscape and the animals in it the way a surgeon knows a procedure they have performed hundreds of times, not casually, not arrogantly, but with the confidence of accumulated repetition. He was, by every account from his peers, excellent at what he did. He was leading 6 tourists on a photographic walking safari that Monday morning when he spotted fresh lion spoor tracks in the soil, recent, close. He made the decision to track the pride, as guides in this park regularly do. The pride consisted of 2 females, 2 males, and 2 cubs. One of the males, a lion named Nsaha, was wearing a GPS collar as part of an Oxford University research program, the same program that had been tracking Cecil before he was killed. Nsaha and Cecil had shared the same park. They had been monitored by the same researchers. They were known animals, collared and mapped, not random unknown. The group came upon the pride in an open area. Nsaha rose from where he had been resting and began moving toward them. Quinn did what 15 years of experience told him to do. He immediately briefed his 6 clients. Calm voice, specific instructions. He positioned himself between the group and the lion. He instructed the tourists to stand behind him and not to move, not to run, because a group that scatters becomes a a group that gets hunted individually. He and the group shouted. He deployed a bear banger, a device that produces a sound like a rifle shot, designed specifically to deter charging predators. Ankseha stopped. He began to move away. A male lion in peak condition can weigh over 225 kilograms, cover 100 meters in under 4 seconds when committed to a charge, and deliver a bite force capable of crushing bone through thick hide in a single closure of the jaw. But what makes lions specifically lethal in a walking safari situation is not their speed or their strength. It is the double back. A lion that retreats is not always retreating. It is sometimes repositioning. Camp Hwangi's own statement, issued the following day, described exactly what happened next. The lion turned around and came again, without hesitation, faster this time, covering the ground before Quinn or anyone in the group could fully reset. Quinn's swales bore the full force of the charge. He placed himself directly in the animal's path, deliberately, the way a trained guide is supposed to, and the lion reached him before he could fire his rifle. He sustained severe bite wounds to the shoulder and neck. The tourists behind him were not touched. Not one of them was harmed. Their screams and the commotion they made eventually drove Ankseha off, and the tourists were able to call for help. Every effort to save Quinn's swales failed. He died from his injuries at the scene on August 24, 2015, in Hwange National Park, in the same ground that had been Cecil's home. There is no footage of what happened to Quinn's swales. None of his clients were filming their guide. They were following his instructions, standing behind him, not moving, exactly where he had told them to be. The account of the attack came from those 6 tourists and from Camp Hwanga's statement, which described the attack in measured language that did not attempt to explain it away. Their general manager said only this: Quinn had done everything within his power. He had unflinchingly faced the charging lion to protect his clients. He had paid the ultimate price doing a job he loved in a place he knew better than almost anyone alive. Zimbabwe Parks opened an investigation. No decision was announced about what would happen to Ankseha. Cecil had just been killed by a hunter. Killing another collared Oxford research lion weeks later was a conversation no authority wanted to have in public. Whether Ankseha was ever put down, the record does not confirm. The next man who died didn't stumble into danger. He paid $10,000 to walk toward it. The animal did not read the itinerary. August 3, 2025, Limpopo Province, South Africa. The Bambasana concession, 50,000 acres of dry thornveld in the far north of the country, dense bush, low visibility, the kind of terrain where an animal can vanish at 10 meters and reappear at 2. Asher Watkins was 52 years old from Dallas, Texas. He ran Watkins Ranch Group, a luxury ranch brokerage affiliated with Briggs Freeman Sotheby's and LEV Sotheby's, trading properties worth as much as $30 million. He had hunted on multiple continents. His social media documented years of expedition, cougars, black-tailed deer, plains game. He was not a beginner. He flew to South Africa with his mother Gwen, his stepfather Tony, and his brother Amon. A light aircraft took them north to the concession. His professional hunter was waiting. The trip cost approximately $10,000. His first day, he took a water buck. His second day, he began tracking Cape Buffalo. The Cape Buffalo Synchorus Kaffir is a bovine that has never been successfully domesticated in recorded history. Adult bulls weigh between 600 and 900 kilograms. Their horns fuse at the skull into a continuous bone shield called a boss, capable of deflecting rifle rounds at close range. Their top speed is 56 kilometers per hour. And then there is the behavior that has killed more hunters in southern Africa than any other single species trait, the ambush loop. A wounded buffalo does not flee in a straight line. It circles back. It uses the bush for cover. It waits. It attacks from behind. The buffalo Watkins was tracking was not wounded, but it had scented the hunting party, and it had moved into cover. The animal burst from thick brush at less than 10 meters. At 56 kilometers per hour, 10 meters is approximately 0.6 seconds. Watkins had no time to raise his rifle. The professional hunter beside him fired, but the shot came after impact. The buffalo struck Watkins with its full weight and drove its horns into his abdomen and torso. Paramedics were called to the concession. They confirmed death on arrival. The professional hunter put the buffalo down with a follow-up shot. Coenraad Vermaak Safaris, the company operating the hunt, cooperated fully with the Limpopo Police inquest that opened immediately after. Hans Vermaak issued a statement confirming the death, calling the attack sudden and unprovoked. The company's own website had described Cape Buffalo as the most dangerous animal to pursue in Africa. Animals that charge unprovoked and require cool nerves and a steady hand. That language was written for customers. It was accurate. Watkins had read it or something like it before boarding his flight, and he had come anyway because that is who he was. He had hunted dangerous game. He understood the risk. He had simply met the version of it that doesn't leave a margin. Here's the detail that stays. His daughter Savannah was 16 years old. She was in Dallas when she found out her father was not coming home from the hunt he had flown to Africa to take. She found out the way families always find out. A call, then a conversation, then a silence that doesn't close. There was no footage from the concession. Hunting operations do not run body cameras. The sequence was reconstructed from his professional hunter and his tracker, the two men who were standing next to him when the bush opened up. The last man in this video did not die on a walk. He did not die chasing something. He died because an animal he had cared for every morning for years looked at him one morning differently than it ever had before. August 26, 2020, Lion Tree Top Lodge, outside Hoedspruit, Limpopo Province, South Africa. A family-run safari property on the edge of the bush, 280 miles from Johannesburg, close to the the northern boundary of Kruger National Park. No guests were staying that week. The lodge was quiet. The morning was routine. Wes Matthewson was 68 years old. Locals called him Uncle West. He was a conservationist with deep roots in the region, someone who spent years fighting for endangered species, white lions among them, and who was respected genuinely, not just because tourism money followed him. Years before this morning, he had rescued 2 lionesses from a canned hunting operation near Polokwane, a breeding farm that raises lions in captivity for clients to shoot inside a fenced enclosure with no real hunt involved, just a guaranteed kill. He took the cubs instead. He named them Demi and Tanner. He raised them by hand from the time they were small enough to sleep curled against his chest, and for years after they were fully grown, he continued to walk them every morning himself, the way another man might walk a dog, except the dog never becomes something capable of ending a human life in under a minute. There is a thing that happens with hand-raised predators that almost no one who has never lived with one fully understands. Tameness is not permanent. It is not a trait you install in an animal by raising it gently. It is a daily negotiation with a nervous system that never stopped being what evolution built it to be. An adult lioness weighs close to 180 kilograms. Her bite force exceeds 650 pounds per square inch. Her claws retract fully and extend fully in the time it takes to blink, and they are designed to hold several hundred pounds of struggling prey in place while her jaws close on the spine. She is not aggressive toward the man who raised her because familiarity suppresses the fear response, it's not the predator response. Those are two different systems, and they can decouple without warning. In 2017, 3 years before this morning, Demi and Tanner escaped their enclosure and killed a farm worker on a neighboring property. Wes Matthewson kept them. He kept walking them every morning. He had known these animals since they were cubs, and in his mind, that history, the years of daily contact, the hand feeding, the trust, outweighed a single violent incident involving someone else on different ground. That reasoning is the quiet failure at the center of this case. Not recklessness, not ignorance, just the human instinct to believe that love creates an exception that biology does not actually recognize. His wife, Gil, 65, was following behind in a vehicle, as she often did on these morning walks. West unlocked the gate. The two lionesses were together, and then, without any visible warning, no growl, no shift in posture that anyone later described as a sign, one animal turned aggressive toward the other, and in the redirection of that aggression, turned on West instead. He was struck. He suffered a severe wound to the groin, the kind that causes catastrophic blood loss within minutes in open ground, far from any surgical facility. Gil got out of the vehicle. She called to the lions by name. She tried to distract them with her voice and her body, and everything a person can do against 180 kilograms of muscle when all she has is herself. It was not enough. She ran for help instead. Think about what those minutes were like for her. She had to leave her husband alive on the ground and run, knowing every second she spent running was a second he didn't have, and knowing there was no guarantee she would make it back in time either way. The nearest hospital was not close. Help had to be driven out from neighbors, radioed in, mobilized from a distance that the Limpopo bush does not shrink for emergencies. West Matthewson died on the way to hospital. There is no footage. He had walked those lionesses 1,000 times, and nobody films a routine. The only account came from Gil and from the people she reached when she ran. The lionesses were tranquilized and relocated to an endangered species center. The lodge issued a statement saying they would definitely not be put down because West had loved them as much as he loved his children, and that love was part of his wishes, and honoring it was the one thing that could still be done for him. Dr. Louise DeWall of the conservation group Blood Lions noted afterward that this was not an isolated incident. Records showed at least 40 similar attacks involving captive lions in South Africa in the previous decade, roughly a quarter of them fatal. West Matthewson did not die because he was careless. He died because he was human, and because the part of the human brain that loves an animal will, given long enough, always outvote the part that remembers what that animal is. Every one of them knew the risk, and none of them knew it the way it actually arrived.